My name's McKendry. I'm an air pollution meteorologist here at UBC. I've worked on air pollution issues in the Lower Fraser Valley for 25 years now, and including some major science projects in 1993 and 2001 when international attention was drawn to the Lower Fraser Valley with two large research projects dedicated to the air pollution meteorology of the Lower Fraser Valley. For the past 20 years or so, the Lower Fraser Valley has been the subject of quite a lot of scientific attention with respect to its air pollution meteorology. This is largely because of the complex situation that exists here. That's not unlike the kind of situation one sees in places like the Los Angeles Basin or perhaps the Po Valley in Italy and other places where you have oceans and narrow valleys together. This often creates a very complicated air pollution meteorology. We're very lucky in the Lower Fraser Valley to have had a period of time in which a number of initiatives have led to improvements in air quality in the Lower Fraser Valley. And so we enjoy at the present time air quality in the Lower Fraser Valley, which internationally is really very good. And this has been the result of a very energetic program of air quality management that includes things like air care and so on. Against that background, however, there are some dark clouds on the horizon, and when one thinks about particularly the addition of new point sources of air pollution in the Lower Fraser Valley, one has to consider the fact that the future for us in the Lower Fraser Valley with respect to air quality is one that we have perhaps very little control over, because changes in air quality are likely to happen here as a result of what's going on in other places in the world. As we look to the future in the Lower Fraser Valley, there are two kind of overarching perspectives that are important to bear in mind as we think about how the Lower Fraser Valley deals with its air pollution meteorology, and particularly how it deals with new sources of combustion in the Lower Fraser Valley, such as industrial sources or some point sources of air pollution. The two important concerns are that, firstly, as we look to the future, what we're seeing already in the Lower Fraser Valley, and we're seeing it actually throughout the Northern Hemisphere, at places even like Mace Head in Ireland, is that the concentrations of ozone in the troposphere, the lower part of the atmosphere, the concentrations of ozone are increasing at a rate of around 5 to 8 parts per billion per decade. 5 to 8 parts per billion per decade. That's an alarming increase in ozone, given that the background ozone concentration in the Northern Hemisphere and the troposphere on average is about 35 parts per billion. So 5 to 8 parts per billion per decade against a background of 35. And we're already beginning to see that in the Lower Fraser Valley at some of our stations. So as we look to the future in the Lower Fraser Valley, one of our concerns is that background pollution that's being transported from long distances away, such as Asia, is increasingly having an impact on the Lower Fraser Valley. It's not just ozone, it's also pollutants like particulate matter. We're seeing more sulfur-based aerosols or particles in the atmosphere arriving, and these are largely being generated by coal-fired power stations, for example. So increasingly we're going to have to deal with pollution that's coming from outside of British Columbia into the Lower Fraser Valley. This is something that we haven't had to deal with before. In the past, our air pollution problems were our own air pollution problems. The second point I want to make about the long term is that we now are pretty well living in a world where global climate change is accepted as a threat to our future. In a globally changed climate, one can expect to see in the lower Fraser Valley an increase in the frequency of conditions which lead to poor air quality because of warmer anticyclonic conditions that might exist in the summertime in a warmed world. We can also expect to see an increase in the frequency of forest fires, for example, in the next 20 to 30 years as the global climate continues to warm. Both of these things are going to have an impact on air quality in the lower Fraser Valley. Into the future, we're looking at a situation for the lower Fraser Valley where we may well face conditions which lead to poor air quality that are in a sense produced by situations beyond our control. So as we look to the future, we see two basic threats to our local air quality, both of which we have very little control over here in the lower Fraser Valley. In my view, I think we need to show a more enlightened approach to the addition of potentially avoidable new combustion sources in the lower Fraser Valley. I think it's fair to say that in this new world that we face, we need to show leadership with respect to dealing with air pollution problems, that also with respect to that leadership, we also need to recognize that past practices that have served us well may not serve us well as we go into this new future where we have the threat of pollutants coming from other places as well as global climate change.